I remember seeing like Lamborghini Murcielagos and Gelatos when I was a kid, and my grandpa would be like, you can never afford that.
Mhm.
Dad, I want to have that car. And I've corrected the dad's like, oh, you'll never get that. It's like, no, if he wants that and he puts in the work, he can get it. Like,
Mhm.
there's trillions of dollars printed. Why can't he just have his 200,000? Even if your parents aren't here, they don't believe in you, you can still do it.
Mhm.
That is why I keep going. That's why I'll never stop. Like, nothing will ever stop me. I believe there's some little boy out there who's missing his dad or mom or both, who's questioning what he should do in life, if he should even continue to live. And I want to be that inspiration for them.
Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of Real Estate Disruptors. So we have Michael Smith with Oasis Home Buyers. Michael flew in from Columbus, Ohio, to talk about how he did $700K in his first 6 months of wholesaling and kept it going. So guys, I'm on a mission to create 100 millionaires. The information on the show alone is enough to help you become a millionaire in the next 5 to 7 years. If you'll take consistent action, you'll become one. And guys, if you get value out of this show, please hit that subscribe button. Do not keep us a secret. That way we can all grow together. You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So first question is, what was your life like right before you got into real estate?
Oh man, what was life like before I got into real estate? My real estate journey actually started in 2018. I had a landscaping business that I was trying to grow, and I brought in the wrong people to manage it. They had a whole bunch of experience, and they had just left their old landscaping jobs, and they found me. I didn't find them. Let's put it that way. And so was getting out of that endeavor, and it was a whole bunch of headaches. I actually had 2 or 3 lawsuits at that time too. And when you get first served with your first lawsuit, I thought my life was over.
Yeah.
Like really over, like everything was falling apart. So I got it into real estate, just selling off some of my landscaping equipment. And my tax guy was like, hey, if you don't buy something, you're going to run into some issues. So I just bought it a couple apartments off the MLS, didn't do anything about it, just sat on them.
Just bought a couple of apartments?
Yeah, small stuff, like nothing big. 4 unit, and I bought 10 units in 2018.
Okay.
Didn't do anything about them. They weren't that sexy. They didn't really cash flow. Fast forward, I started a W-2 job selling new homes. Learned how to sell a little bit better, make some good money. They were a $1 billion plus company. And then
So you became a realtor.
I wasn't a realtor. I just builder rep. I'm not
Builder rep.
I don't like schooling. I don't like education. And
So how does that work? So you work for the builder.
Yep.
What were you selling?
New builds. So like you'd come into the model and have to go through the process, the discovery, find out what needs you needed, what price point, what your family needed.
You didn't have to be a realtor to sell in the new build?
No, because they owned it.
Interesting. I know you can do that in property management. Like you can work in an apartment complex without being licensed. I know you could work in a new build to sell new builds without being licensed.
Yeah, I think it probably varies by the state, but in Ohio anyway, as long as you work for the company, you're okay.
Okay.
And they're building their own product from the ground up.
Okay. All right.
So did that. In the meantime, found you and Tony Javier pretty much at the same time, somewhere around 2019, 2020, started listening to you, heard you say what you just said at the end, every intro. I have a mission to make 100 millionaires. And I was like, that's going to be me. And then met Tony shortly after. I had, at this point, already bought several rental units. And leading up to it, I had found out about wholesaling. And I was like, I don't want to be a wholesaler, but I bet I can get better deals and learn to flip.
All right.
So that's where I went into it, hired Tony to get my TV ads up and running. And then August 17th, 21, my TV ads ran. And that was the last day I worked at my W-2 job. they fired me that day.
August of 2021.
Yep, 2021. Yep, August 17th was the day.
Okay. So you got fired.
I got fired.
For what?
I never got an explanation, but it was the day my TV ads ran.
This is from the new build?
Yeah, from the new build company.
They fired you. They didn't tell you why. Like maybe they see the ad and
rumor has it the market president saw the ad. Like I got fired. Like I had gone into work on my off day because this was August of 21. So like real estate had come to a halt in Columbus, Ohio. New builds in May. We had waiting list of 30, 40 people for every community. We were selling 150, 200% of quota, and we couldn't keep up with that. So we had massive waiting list. Come June 1st, as I'm sure you know, the waiting list just died and we didn't sell anything because interest rates started to go up and everyone panicked. So we didn't sell anything. At August 17th, I think we only had 4 sales for the month on a quota of over 50. So they needed to let someone go. And I think they saw my ad and they're like, hey, this guy's doing stuff on the side. we need to motivate the whole sales team. Because I was top 15 out of 150 reps too.
Yeah.
Um,
So I'm just trying to just picture this scenario. Were you Oasis home buyers?
yeah.
So what was your ad that like when they saw this TV?
It's got a whole bunch of torn down houses. We buy houses cash, and I'm selling like I think my average price point was in the low 600,000. Like I've probably bought 3 or 4 houses since then that are above that price point, but it's not what I'm going after.
Right. Yeah. So
I mean, my ad runs on Judge Judy.
I'm just trying to picture the scenario. Like they knew who you were.
Yep.
Everyone in the company knew who you were.
Yeah.
So when they saw the ad, there was no question. It's like, is that the Michael from? Like they just knew.
Yeah.
So it was fairly instant. Like by noon, you were out the door.
So it was. I'm typing an email at 5:58. This is the end of the day, and it goes, "Your email password was changed 13 seconds ago." And I was like, "What are you talking about? I didn't do that." And then I hear a door shut, and I hear another door shut, and I look out, and there's the 2 sales managers, and they live like 45 minutes away. So the fact that they're on my end of town at 6:00, and my email, I was like, "Oh well, it was my last day."
So you knew instantly.
Yeah, I just closed my laptop, waited for them to come in. They're like, "Hey, can you deal with all your customers?" And I was like, "What? You're firing me.
Yeah.
Here's my laptop and key. Let's part ways.
Yeah.
Let's be friends."
How long did you work there?
It was just shy of 3 years. I started in middle of 2018.
So 3 years, and you were a top rep.
Yeah, I finished the year before at number 8 out of 150 reps.
Gotcha. So how did you become good at selling? I mean, 8 out of 150, that's top 0.5%. Or top 5%. So what did you do to become good at sales?
Man, so I worked at GNC and Complete Nutrition, which were supplement companies, and I was top rep number 1 at both of those. GNC only ranked you on a state level and a like territory level. So I took pride in being number 1 there. Complete Nutrition ranked you nationally. I was always number 1 there. I think I just have this drive. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to be the best at it. Like I quit sports in high school because I was like, I quickly learned that like I just didn't have the gift to go to the next level. So it's like, why continue this? So sales for me is I wanted out of my situation. Didn't know my dad. Grew up with my grandparents because my mom couldn't afford me, and I just knew sales could make me a lot of money. And not that money's everything, but I knew money could change my situation, and I wouldn't have to go through the things that I saw as a kid, and didn't want my future generations behind me to have to go through any of that.
So you saw sales as a vehicle.
Yep.
How did you see sales to be your vehicle?
Saw sales as a vehicle. Even at a young age, I realized that people could go into sales and could make a really good amount of money, and school wasn't for me. Which is funny because I spent a lot on education now. Like it was just
custom education.
Yes, custom to me education. School had no custom education to me. It was do it this way,
right? Do
what I want and be done with it. And I've never really been one to follow the mold. So I didn't do well in school at all. To the point, like, I remember the day before graduation, my grandpa got a call saying, "Hey, we're not sure he's going to graduate." An ex-girlfriend got an English teacher to change my grade from an F to a D to make sure I graduated. That's how close it was.
Wow. So it's fascinating. So you knew from an early age that sales was a way out. Because for me, I never looked at sales as a way out, right? Like I looked at real estate as a way to escape my W-2, but I never looked at the sales component, right? So I looked more like real estate agent versus real estate sales professional. So sales was never a key part of it, right? It was always like, as a W-2 person, like pharmaceutical sales does pretty well, but not something that like sells something that you go work on.
Yeah, so I had 2 people in my life that were grandparents' friends. One lived across the way, and this was like 2008. My grandpa had just lost his job, and he's moving to a much bigger house. And like when everyone else is freaking out about their houses, he's moving to a house like triple size. And he owned, I asked him, I was like, "Dude, how are you? Like, you just got a new BMW. You're going to like," at the time, if I had to guess, the houses were probably like 200. And he was going to a neighborhood that now the houses are 2 million plus. I'm like, "How are you doing this?" He's like, "Well, I own 800 apartments." I was like, okay. So I'm like, what is that? That's gonna be 8th grade probably, so I'm 13-ish when that clicked for me. And then another gentleman, he was in sales his whole life, and his company gave him trips all the time, and he had the Escalade, like he had it all. But I don't think he ever got to enjoy life. He always had to work. So I kind of figured out at a young age if I coupled sales, I could make a lot of money. And then if I took that money and plugged it into real estate, good things were happening. So I started my landscaping company because I knew I could sell it. I could sell the services and make money. And the whole idea was to plug that extra money into real estate. I just wasn't smart enough to figure out the business thing at 18 years old when I started that.
You started landscaping at 18 years old.
Yep.
So you graduate high school, barely.
Yeah.
And you just start a landscaping business.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gumption.
Yeah. I always knew I wanted to start a business. And I was out to dinner with my grandparents' friends, and they're like, you've been mulching lawns, shoveling driveways, mowing grass since you were probably 10 years old. Why don't you just go do that? And so they had a nice house in Muirfield, which is an upscale community not too far from where I was. They gave me their lawn, and then I just knocked on everyone's door, got everyone else's lawn in that cul-de-sac, and then just grew it to at one point, I think we had 150 yards we were mowing a week. And 2017, we did $2.9 million in sales 6 years into it, just bootstrapping it all.
It's just funny to think about at 18 years old, you got 8 years of experience in landscaping.
Yeah.
So doing this as 10,
Yeah.
like this is not a normal, was the normal path to life.
Yep.
Right. You were hustling since you were 10.
Probably earlier, because I remember like elementary school. It was, I think, BJ's Wholesale. We'd get these like, I don't know, 2 or 5 pound bag of mints, and I would sell those for $0.25. Like I'd get the whole bag from my grandparents for free, and I'd sell them for $0.25. I'd like come home with like $4 or $5. So I don't know when that started, but that was definitely in elementary school. So it was well before then. That I've been selling stuff. Trying to make a buck.
It's curious because I remember reading Delivering Happiness. Have you read that one?
I haven't, no.
It was by Tony Hsieh, who founded Zappos.
Okay.
Right. He talked about how he was hustling as a kid. And as I'm reading the book.
I have read this book. Yeah.
And as I'm reading, I was like, this is like my life story.
Yeah.
Right? Like hustling in elementary school, getting in trouble for selling things you're not supposed to be selling.
Yep.
Right. And so I'm always curious as like what drove it. So do you know, you were saying like, you didn't know your father.
Yep.
Your mom wasn't. Do you think that is what drove all this entrepreneurship? Most business owners waste their time and money on solutions that never fix the root problems. They'll address all the symptoms due to slow revenue, and because they're only fixing the consequences, the real problem stays hidden and the cycle of wasting time and money continues. It's like having a lingering headache that won't go away despite trying every over-the-counter medicine. When in reality, you should have just gone to the doctor and had them figure out exactly what was causing the headache. And that's what's so difficult about business. You can see and feel the symptoms and yet struggle to find it. Now imagine you can find a prescription that doesn't just mask the symptoms, but actually addresses the root cause. Where would your business be if you addressed that right now? That's what our sales event is about. Your marketing doesn't suck, your leads aren't bad, and your operations aren't terrible. It's that you haven't addressed what actually makes you money in wholesale, which is the conversations you have with homeowners. It's critical that you build trust with sellers, demonstrate that you fully understand their situation, know exactly what's keeping them up at night, and paint the ideal outcome that leads them to a better future by working with you. That's what it takes to get signed contracts and keep your business going. Simply put, at our event, you'll walk away with the framework, phrases, questions, documents, and process to close more sales and buy more houses. Join the hundreds of others who have come to our live event and dramatically grown their business. Our event is happening soon and is available for you to join only if you're willing to take the pill.
I think probably what drove it is like growing up with my grandparents, they never planned to raise 2 more kids after their kids moved out. Being told no, I hated being told no when I'd go to the store. And so I was like, okay, I'll just go figure out the money myself. And so I did. I think that was probably the biggest thing is being told no. And I didn't like sitting still. And so I needed a way to conversate with people. And if you had something that they wanted, they would come talk to you.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. Because there's very few people that just shoot out of the gates in wholesaling, right? There's some that do.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot. But the ones that do tend to perhaps sizzle out or fizzle out. Like they don't, it's hard to sustain, right? It's
really hard.
Sustain consistent success. You started in 21, but in your first 6 months, you did almost $700,000 in revenue.
Yeah.
And since then, you've only continued to grow it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the real estate component later on, but what do you think it is within you that's allowed you to start fast and keep going?
Yeah. So when we started in 21, we started flipping. So that first August, I didn't do my first deal till September. So that it was fourth quarter technically is when I did all my real estate closings on the sales side for flips. I netted, it was 8 deals, $300,000 I netted.
Mhm.
And then which was what I was on track to make in my W-2. So that was my whole goals. When I got fired August 17th, I was like, I just lost a $300,000 job. What the hell am I going to do?
Mhm.
And so after all the expenses of marketing and buying the properties and selling the properties, I had $300,000 left over.
Mhm.
And then first half of 22, all I did was flip. And then when I saw my friends at the new builds running out of list again, I was like, oh man, I'm going to run into trouble. So
Mhm.
July, we started wholesaling. And I think I was one of the first people that saw the market really shifting again in
Mhm.
22. And so I started wholesaling and didn't buy anything after June. So I wholesaled my first deal at July. I got really lucky. My first deal was a 75K assignment.
Mhm.
We were going to flip that deal and it was going to be a 100K flip for us. But this buyer came out of nowhere and was like, hey, I'll give you X amount. I was like, what? This is like a full gut job. You're going to make 25. He was banking on what was happening previous spring when you
Mhm.
sold stuff that you could sell it listed at $399. It would go for $450.
Mhm.
He ended up losing like $40,000 on that job. I do feel a little bit bad for that because I had information that I didn't share with him.
Mhm.
Um,
Hopefully he's not watching.
yeah. But from there on, I just knew that I was like, okay, if I can find good deals, buyers come.
Mhm.
And so that's what I've always been focused on is finding the good deals. So that first 6 months, we did $700,000 of 22. And I was like, this is so much easier. There's no risk. I had a couple deals that I'd bought in late May of 22 that I lost money on because that market really shifted and
Yeah.
and prices kind of plummeted in Columbus in certain areas and just holding costs because I don't think I ever had a house not going to contract the first 3 days. My
Yeah.
first 24 houses I flipped were in contract within 3 days.
Yeah.
I didn't know any better. Like,
It's gravy. It's gravy. This is easy.
Yes.
So this whole time you're doing this, you're flipping
Mhm.
while working at the new build.
No, because I got fired. That's
Mm.
what started the flips. Is I had got fired in August of 21. I was like, how do I replace my $300,000 income? So I went
Got
to flipping right away.
Got it.
And then second half or first half of 22, I realized the market was not going to be like this forever. I needed to change.
Gotcha.
And I was running out of cash too. When you got 15 projects going,
Mhm.
you become cash strapped very quickly.
Yeah.
And so I started wholesaling. And to answer your point, how did we get there so fast? Is I just knew marketing and sales. That's all I've ever known. I don't know how to lead people or manage people. Don't get me wrong, I'm learning.
Mhm.
But I've always thought I was good at sales and marketing. And
Yeah.
I knew if I could do that, lock up the deals cheaper, everything
Mhm.
else would come my way. And so that's what really helped us that second half of
Mhm.
22 is we had the deal flow. We were one of the first people to go on TV.
Mhm.
I mean, you've been in a long time. I don't think people started going on TV before. It was COVID when I think everyone went on.
Yeah.
And we were on one of the first ones in our market.
So are you saying your first marketing channel was TV?
First, I cold called a couple of people at my W-2 job. I had a list of 100 people that I cold called.
Mhm.
And that's when I realized, wait, I don't have the time to do this.
Yeah.
I'm making $300,000. Why am I cold calling?
Mhm.
And then I had heard Tony, I don't know if he was on your podcast. He had to be on your podcast because you were like one of the only people I was listening to. And then I
Yeah.
think he got on Tom Kroll's podcast.
Mhm.
I think when Tom was on,
Wholesaling Inc.
yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So I heard those two back to back. Those were the only two. I was like, screw it. I'm just going to sign up for it.
Yeah.
So I signed up for it. It was like 10, 15 grand. I don't
Mhm.
remember. And then Tony got me on TV and I was like, I have a full-time job that I make a ton of money. I need hot people just calling me ready to close.
Mhm.
That's literally what happened.
Right. And so is that how it worked?
Yeah.
So right off the bat, you had easy leads.
I would consider them easy leads.
Okay.
They're not as easy anymore, guys.
So talk to me about that. So your first one that comes in, you're taking the call.
Yeah, I'm taking the calls.
So you're taking the calls and you're running the inbound call. You're booking the appointment.
Yep.
At this time, how many houses have you bought outside? Right, because like you bought the apartments.
Yeah, so
with a realtor.
I'd never bought single-family houses before I started on TV.
Did you at least buy your own home?
Yeah, I'd bought my own
So
home.
at least you bought a house
Yeah,
before for your
that's it.
primary.
Yeah, yeah.
But your first investment deal, you went on. You've never bought a home before.
Yep.
And you go in there. So talk to me about this experience.
I think when I walked into this lady's house, the first one I closed, So I started in August. Didn't get that many calls the first 2 weeks. So I was a little bit nervous. We were spending, it was a 10K up front and then 10K ad spend for the first 3 months, what I did. So I didn't get my first appointment till September. And I go to this lady's house and she like idolized me. And I was like, what? And like, I just went with it. She did all the work for me. And I just presented the contract, price and everything worked. I had heard Brent Daniels once say, even if the price works, come in $5,000 lower, just so there's nothing there. And so I did that. We locked it up. We got that deal closed. And then they just started coming.
Yeah.
Like, I got really lucky because I was the first person in my market on TV.
And you never talked about this. Not everyone has success on TV in Ohio.
No, a lot of the big players have come and gone on TV.
What would you attribute that to?
I think one, I was the first one. I'm not saying being first is always the best. I think in most big corporations, being first is actually like the worst thing you can do. But I think for me, TV is a proven marketing channel. If you widen your lens and give it a long enough time frame. And two, I've never come off. I think a lot of the people on TV think you're going to have all these constant lead flow. There's weeks we don't get a call from TV. And so if you were always banking on that and you weren't following up with people, you'd be in trouble. But if like, for example, last month, our closed deals from TV was 1-to-1.
Yeah.
But you widen it out over 6 months, we're still 4.2 for every dollar spent.
Right.
Makes sense still.
Yeah. So what would have happened if you didn't get fired from your job?
I think about this all the time because I am someone, I kind of wish I didn't get fired for the one reason. That's the only sales job I've ever had where I didn't finish number one. And like, so I kind of want to go back. You're laughing, but like there's nights I don't sleep because
really?
Seriously, I've never been fired from a job that I wasn't the number one employee. And
so you're saying you become number one and then you get fired?
Yeah. That's what I need. I need to become number one. That's it.
So let's talk about that. There needs to be number one.
It's the desire to win. Like,
right. To be number one. Is this, you talked about you played sports. What sports did you play?
I played everything. Football. I hadn't played football from like 6th grade. Last time I played was 6th grade. I played senior year of football, and then I didn't play at all high school. Lacrosse, basketball, wrestling. So I played them all.
Lacrosse?
Yeah.
Is that big in Ohio?
Huge in Ohio.
Really?
Yeah. I guess it's probably not very big out here.
It's not very big. Or at least if it is, I'm not aware of it.
You're not aware.
Right? Yeah. So basketball, what did you play?
Basketball, I was like a 3 or 4. I never played like past high school.
So which sport were you the best at?
Probably lacrosse. Like
Lacrosse.
I think lacrosse, if I would have not broke my ribs, I think I would have been a college athlete for lacrosse.
Gotcha. So we're talking about, growing up, not having much.
Yep.
Seeing sales as a way out, being competitive. I mean, there's a bit of a trend here.
Yeah.
Right. This strong determination to win.
Yeah.
Has that ever come back to bite you?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Where has it come back to bite you?
Now that I'm growing a company, it's to get to the levels I want to get to. I want to be the biggest wholesaler in Ohio. Hopefully we'll take that on this year. And then I want to
got a few big names in Ohio.
Definitely do.
Okay.
Friends with most of them.
Yeah.
And they know I'm coming after them. And then Midwest, and then I want to compete for like on the national level and take this as big as I can take it. So it's definitely bit me in the butt with managing people. Like I have this expectation that you should always be able to do what I can do. And I've never thought I was the smartest person in the room. I typically tell people I'm typically the dumbest person in the room, but I outwork everyone and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win and keep going at like any cost. As far as like in the past landscaping industry, doing snow and stuff like that, I've been known to shovel for 48 hours straight, 72 hours straight, because no one else would do it. So I would just do it and then pay the guys to go run the trucks because like everyone will run a truck all day, but they won't go shovel all day.
Right.
So where it's kind of bit me in the butt is expecting people to have that same work ethic as me and expecting people to be able to figure out things as much as I have. I wasn't diagnosed with dyslexia till after high school, but I've been told that's a lot of my benefit. The fact that I graduated and passed English and Spanish classes and like couldn't figure out reading, and now I'm an avid reader, but I had to read so much to become good at reading. I remember like 3rd grade, my grandparents had like a real talk with me. They're like, if we don't figure out reading, like we're never getting past 3rd grade.
Yeah.
And so like every night they had to read to me and I'd have to read to them. And from there on, until recently, I've read probably a book a week.
Yeah.
And now it's trying to double down and just master one book a month.
And that's different, reading versus mastering.
Yeah.
And
I learned that this year.
What was it? We had Max was on the show many, many years ago, right?
Yeah.
He talked about he had it. Was it Richard Branson, right? Some of the most successful people have dyslexia.
Yeah.
Because you have to learn other skills and you have to become not great at things.
Yeah.
So you can delegate effectively.
And you have to have grit to get through like certain things that you
Right.
probably aren't going to be good at.
So you mentioned that you're leading people. So how is this being ultra competitive? How does it hurt you? Because I know you're saying like you realize these aren't people aren't wired like you, but how does that hurt you?
Yeah, it's definitely hurt me in the fact of like I'm managing my sales team right now, and I'm just someone. If I do $150,000 in sales last month, I'm gonna go do 175 and 200. Most people, their thermostat gets hit here, and they just stop there, and they're being content, or they want to go up 1 or 2%. That really drives me crazy. I'm like, wait, you got an extra 3 leads you can close. Why aren't you taking advantage of that?
Yeah.
And you get that harsh tone, and because like that's who you would be. So I've had to come to the realization that now everyone's me, and I'm not everyone else, and that's good. There's nothing wrong with that by any means. If everyone was like me, there'd never be employees, right?
Right, and there'd probably be a lot of chaos in the world.
No, that is very true.
We're talking about like leading people the way you want to be led, more or less, right? And that's something that we learned from Larry Hatch. I did a speaking last night at Chris Iman's event, and the guy pulled me aside. I was like, we're talking about the golden rule: treat others how you don't want to be treated.
Yeah.
Platinum rule: treat others how they want to be treated.
Yep.
And he gave the best illustration, right? It was like basically, Michael, what's your favorite ice cream, or do you like? What's your favorite dessert?
Probably Reese's.
Reese's.
Yeah.
Right. Like, sure, I saw you eat a lot of Skittles the other day.
That's just because I can't eat Reese's. I haven't had Reese's at all this year, so
all right,
I'm filling the void.
So you love Reese's, right?
Yep.
So I show up, right, and let's just say I like ice cream. So we're showing up, we're gonna be hanging out, and I just bring a bunch of ice cream.
Yep.
Am I doing this for Michael, or am I doing this for me?
You're definitely doing it for Mr. Trang.
I'm doing it for Mr. Trang. So that's not really helping you, right? So I got to figure out, what do you want?
Yeah.
And give you that. And that it took so long for me to understand to lead other people how they want to be led, because that's where I always let everyone else how I want it to be led.
Yep.
And that is not effective because we're resourceful.
Yeah.
And not everyone has the same level of resourcefulness.
Totally agree. And that's what the journey I'm going through right now.
Yeah. So let's talk about getting fired from all these jobs.
Yeah.
Right. It didn't sound like it was just one. Like I get number one and then they get fired. What is that about?
Yeah, I think I've only been fired from one job, full disclosure. I think getting fired, I remember I had a girlfriend at the time, and I went to her parents' house afterwards and like, how are you doing? Are you going to start applying to other jobs? And I was like, I'll be fine. I'll figure it out. And like, I'd already started this real estate journey. I was like, I had 100 rentals at the time, and like, I'd never spent that money ever. All I was doing is that every time that cash flow got to like 30 or 40 grand, it was a new duplex. And so it was the cash flow plus my W-2 job. My expenses at that time, I had a paid off F-150. I had a mortgage payment on a like respectable house, nothing nice. It was $1,200. But like most people aren't gonna be like, oh, that's a dump by any means, but it's not nice. It was a great first house. Girlfriend had a $600 Jeep payment, I believe, and then I think her student loans were like $400 or $500. So all in every month, if we never produce any income, we needed like $3,200. I looked at like if I stopped putting my money back in my rentals, I'd never looked at it. It was $22,000. I was like, I don't need to work ever again.
Yeah.
It was just I wanted more in life, and so once I figured that out, and I figured it out that night, I was like, okay, I can do what I want, and I don't have to worry. And so that was a very fortunate situation for me.
Yeah.
That I guess most people don't have. That I didn't have the pressure of needing money. Don't get me wrong, I wanted money, and that pressure was definitely there, but I didn't need any money. Like we had literally no bills, and girlfriend at the time was a teacher. Her $60,000 salary covered all of our bills if I'd never produced any income. Now, she would not have been very happy if she had to pay her bills, but I bet she would have if she had to.
How old were you at this time?
26.
26.
Yeah, this is.
So at 23 years old, you already have $20,000 a month.
Well, no. I was 26 at that time.
At that time?
Yeah, I was 26.
So at 26, you already had enough cash flow to not work the rest of your life. That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize how good I had it until like I got fired.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about how you got to that. I mean, forget like the 700 in the first 6 months. What the hell were you doing to get to the point where you get 20K a month cash flow? Because most people today, even listening, aren't at that level.
Yeah, I think what it was is in 2018 when I started selling off, I'd been buying construction equipment. I started that business to get into real estate. So I'd been buying construction equipment, a new job. I plowed for FedEx. So I had some big accounts. And they'd be like, hey, you need to have this much equipment and a skid steer, a truck, the manpower for that cost like $250,000. So I was pretty young, so I could get loans on this stuff, but I'd still have to put 25, 30% down. I had pretty good connections. Being a salesperson, I could get discounts on trucks. I'd call around, find them. And so when I realized I'm not good at managing people, and that was the whole problem with my landscaping, I didn't know how to manage people, and I didn't know how to find people who could manage people. I was like, I'm done. I don't want to deal with all these headaches. Landscaping attracts some not so great people. Sorry for anyone in the landscaping industry. I just didn't want to be around them anymore.
Yeah.
And so I started selling that stuff off, and the CPA was like, dude, you're going to have a ton of capital gains here from all this equipment. Because I was actually selling some of this equipment for more than I paid for it.
Yeah.
Because I had like 8 or 9 pieces of like skid steers that were like $50,000, $60,000 each, and I could get them at 10 or 15% discounts because I was buying them in bulk. Well, then I could go sell them to individuals who were just getting started, and they would pay me what they could go get them for retail. So I was making money on these things, and so I was like, okay, I'll just buy an apartment complex. I've heard that's great.
What's a skid steer?
So you probably see them on the street when they're ripping up pavement. They got 4 wheels. They could turn on a dime, bucket up front. They're really good for pushing snow, loading mulch into trucks.
Gotcha.
That's what we used them for.
Gotcha. Okay. And so you could, for all intents and purposes, at that time, wholesale skid steers.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Which would have been a really good business to stay in because as prices just went up.
Yeah.
Like used equipment went up like 125% because of COVID, but didn't know it.
So you sold all this equipment. I mean, how much cash were you sitting on after you sold all this equipment?
Like $200,000.
200,000. And then you bought apartments.
Yeah, I bought I think $1.8 million in apartments with that money.
And then over time, you just kept.
Yeah, I had a W-2. I was making $200,000 a year my first 2 years there. And so I just told you my bills were $3,000. We weren't spending any of that money. It was literally, I get a check for $25,000. Taxes would take their fair share. I'd have $18,000. I'd be like, cool, I can go buy a new duplex. Or I'd be like, I'm gonna wait till next month because I want a 6 unit or whatever the case might be. And so that's all I was doing.
So you're buying real estate almost every month, if not every other month.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I learned that I could buy the distressed ones on the MLS, not even at a discount, just what they were. And then I could realize, rents are like $700. If I go put $15,000 on a unit, I can raise them for $14,000. I can refi them. I had a really solid W-2. So when I got fired, I had 30 properties I was really getting ready to refinance, but I had 70 that were at 4% rates.
Yeah. So
like cash flow was amazing.
Yeah.
And rents were going up every year. It was crazy. So I was super fortunate for that.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some of your biggest victories in this journey in from getting fired to where you are today in real estate?
Depends how you define a victory, I think. Honestly, some of there's been a lot of ups and downs throughout that. You lost some key people, went through a breakup. So I think a key victory that a lot of people don't talk about is just having the discipline to keep going, even when things aren't going in your direction. I've always had that discipline. I go to the gym to get in shape, but it's more important for me for mindset. So I think that's one big one. The other big victories would be we just closed $400,000 a month, 408 in February in assignments. And first quarter of last year, my whole goal for the whole quarter was $450,000.
Yeah.
So when you can look back at what your goals were a year ago and now you're doing that in a month, man, that's a pretty good feeling.
Absolutely, it's a good feeling.
And it realize how far you've come. And then you can really enjoy that moment, because I don't think a lot of people get to enjoy that moment. But for me, I'll never enjoy the moment too long. I'm always on to the next biggest challenge.
Well, let's talk about enjoying it, because you mentioned one of the idols you had growing up, like he had an Escalade. He was always traveling.
Yeah.
You didn't really get to enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't think he actually enjoyed much. And so I've never really reflected on that too much. Whereas the other guy who had the 800 apartments, he enjoyed life. Like he was getting the new BMW every year. He was and it wasn't the cars. I'm very confident he could afford Ferraris, Lamborghinis, all of that stuff. I talked to him recently. He's got over 1,000 units, and he hasn't bought anything in like 6 or 7 years. So I can only imagine what that's worth today. But he travels a lot with his wife. Like I remember one year they celebrated 2 New Years, like one in Australia and one in US. That was like they wanted to have 2 parties. He loves his life. You know what I mean? So like, I think it's more about that, figuring out the things you love. For me, I do like those things, but I also just enjoy the growth. Like I really enjoy looking back and be like, oh, I remember when $100,000 a month in a business was exciting. Now it's like, if we don't get that a week, I'm pretty upset.
Isn't it fascinating how that goes? We set this new barometer.
Yes.
Nonstop.
It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
I remember when $10,000 a week was a lot.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, it is. It's just, I'm always going to want more and continue shooting for the next level, whatever that might be.
Yeah, we kind of look at the way we described this is like the very first time you go to the casino, you bet $5 on blackjack. It's like, I hope I don't lose it.
Yeah.
Then you get to 10, then it's 20, it's 50. Then the next thing you know, it's like $100.
Yeah.
You're not even thinking about it.
Yeah, especially if you're winning.
Yeah, especially if you're winning. But the next time you go, like you start back at 100. You don't go back to 5.
Yeah.
The next time you go to the casino. And then you and I, we had a chance to talk about cars.
Yeah.
Sounds like that's your poison.
Yeah, if I had to pick a poison, I am a car fanatic. I've loved cars. I remember seeing like Lamborghini Murcielagos and Gelatos when I was a kid, and my grandpa would be like, you can never afford that. And so I'm just a car fanatic for sure.
Does that stick out in your head when he said that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's that and just like expensive things in general. I remember my grandpa he's super modest, never understands the high life kind of thing. And yeah, I remember every moment he's ever told me like, oh, that person's only showboating and all that stuff. And don't get me wrong, there are definitely people with Ferraris, Lamborghinis, all those things, and they're showboating. But there are definitely those people, and I'm one of those people who just enjoy the car. That is my art. I appreciate it for what it is, not for anything else.
Yeah, we had that conversation. You were here for our sales leadership training a week or 2 ago. And we were talking about, do you remember what I said about Lamborghinis?
I don't remember exactly, but it was definitely a knock on Lamborghini owners.
Yeah, I mean, all I was saying was there's only one reason why Lamborghini, and so they can post about it on Instagram, right? And there's a marketing expense at this point, but it's my
CPA won't let me write them off, sadly, because he doesn't say he says they're not ordinary or necessary.
He's probably protecting you. He
is. I'm okay with it too.
So a principle I learned along the way, as far as marketing and sales goes, is like there's 3 levels. There's the mind, the brain.
Yep.
Right. That's the logical. Doesn't sell very well.
No.
Right. And then there's the heart. Right. And the heart is like, how do you feel and this and that. And then the lowest level is the loins.
Yeah.
Right. And this is identity. Right. Like people will pay a premium for identity.
Oh yeah, totally.
Right. So Lamborghinis, I put in that category.
I agree with you, but something about a revving natural aspirated V10 engine just brings out an emotion.
Oh, I completely agree with that. I love the sound of Italian cars.
Yeah.
I completely am on board.
Blows
I
my
love
mind.
cars. I love cars. But I'm bringing this up because you have more than a few.
I do. That is correct.
Right. So I just kind of want to drive into this point. Like the things that might have driven you.
Yeah.
Right. So your grandfather says, that's not for you, or you'll never afford it, or if they have it, it's because you're showboating.
Yep, those were the
and those are the things that are etched in your brain.
Yeah, definitely.
You think that leads to your car collection today?
I think so. I remember when I bought my first. I had 2 Shelbys, a GT 350R and a GT 500. I didn't tell anyone about them for 2 years. Like I was embarrassed that I had these cars. I was embarrassed that I loved them and that and me and my girlfriend would take them out all the weekends and like. I didn't tell her stepdad was a lot and the same as my grandpa. I didn't tell him for like 3 months that I had this car. He was so mad that because he was a car guy. He just didn't see like it logical. He was very logical brain. Didn't matter. You could have $10 million in the bank. He's not going to spend $100,000 on a car.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's the point of having $10 million in the bank if you're not going to go have fun? Like to me, that's fun.
Go ahead.
So it definitely affected me. Like I still haven't told my grandpa that I have a Lambo. I've had it for 4 months. He has no idea.
Yeah.
I have a Porsche. He has no idea that I own a Porsche. I've had
Yeah.
that thing for almost a year now. So yeah, I do it for me, not anyone else. But I think like it's always in the back of your mind that someone else is going to judge you for this one way or another. And I've learned too, those cars inspire people. I'll be out driving and someone will be like, Dad, I want to have that car. And I've corrected the dads like, oh, you'll never get that. It's like, no, if he wants that and he puts in the work, he can get it. Like there's trillions of dollars printed. Why can't he just have his 200,000? That's not that much.
It kind of reminds me of Wolf of Wall Street. I don't remember the scene exactly, but it was like, you know, if you can show me a check, whatever, like,
Yeah.
right? Is that you can inspire people.
Yep.
And my dad was the same thing, you know, like it's 2024. I want to say it was like 5 or 6 years ago. He finally sold his 1998 Dodge Caravan.
Yeah.
Right. He had that Dodge Caravan for like 20 years. And I remember growing up, same things like, Dad, you know, how come we don't have nice cars? You know, because we had, like, my first car was a Pontiac 6000, which is an awful car. It was 85 horsepower. They had the, Oldsmobile Oldsmobile Silhouette, Dodge. Like, these are just not the funnest cars.
Yeah.
And I was like, Dad, why don't you work hard? Like, you have a really nice house. Like, why don't you have a nice car? He's like, oh, those are for people that just want to put it on their credit.
Yeah, and showboat. Yeah, that's my grandpa. Same thing. I think his only vehicle that he's bought new was a '99 F-150. He sold that to me in 2015. So what? 26 years. For I think $1,000. I sold it for $1,000 2 years later. But it had 380,000 miles, all original, everything.
Yeah.
And so he literally drove that thing into the dirt. And even when he got another truck, he bought it a year old because he's like, I'm never buying a new truck again. I'm like, it worked out. What's the big deal? Just go buy a new truck, man.
Yeah.
He kept the old one because he didn't want to put miles on a new one.
Yeah. So
I think it's scarcity mindset though too.
Oh, there's definitely a scarcity mindset, and I think, you know, it comes with your upbringing.
Yeah.
Like my dad came over here. I mean, he had everything taken away. Like,
they had much harder lives than we did.
Yeah,
in the grand scheme of things.
The adversity that my parents went through, your grandfather went through, way harsher than the adversity that we went through.
Like, we got to see all the people who went through adversity and overcame it due to the internet and things like that. They didn't have that.
Right.
So like my grandpa been in Ohio his whole life. So like he had tough times, but he didn't have like the adversity of coming into a new country like your dad did. But he definitely had adversity, and he never saw other people overcoming adversity. So they were always scared that like,
mobility was not as much of an option.
Yeah. We can go look on the internet when there's a problem that we've run into. Oh, has anyone overcome this problem? Yeah. I mean, there's always people who don't overcome it as well.
Sure.
But you get to choose which side you want to focus on.
But there's a roadmap you can follow.
Yeah. Whereas my grandparents and your dad didn't have that.
Yeah. There's just W-2.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah. That's all they thought.
Yeah. You spent countless weeks going back and forth with a homeowner only to lose a deal because the seller changed their mind, another wholesaler made an unreasonable offer, or what the seller needs from the sale, you just can't pay. Now imagine you've got the ultimate control on a property that you just locked up, meaning you're on title and every decision has to go through you, eliminating virtually every external threat. That's why the installment method was created. Through installment payments, you have full control of the property as your name is now on the title. Any decision the seller wants to make now has to be approved by you. No longer can they pull out equity, go with another buyer, or change their mind. Imagine combining the best of creative finance with the flexibility of marketing the property on the MLS to collect the most amount of revenue possible, all while having total control of the property. This is just the tip of the iceberg. The concept here is simple, but implementing is challenging. So visit wholesale2024.com to learn more so that you'll never have another deal blow up. So one of my pet peeves is when someone says you shouldn't spend money on cars until you have X.
Yeah.
You want to speak on that?
Oh, well, I'm assuming it's going to talk about X amount of real estate.
X amount of real estate, X amount of income, X amount of dollars in the bank account, all these things, right? Like, they judge you on buying cars, but they'll never judge you on the house or the vacations or anything else or the watches.
Yeah, that's what I do. I'm going through it right now in my child support. They're like, why do you have all these cars? Because my tax return doesn't show I'm actually making any money, as I'm sure it doesn't shock you. But my argument is, hey, if I go on a vacation and spend $10,000, it's gone. Poof. I can never sell that vacation. I can't go, hey, here's this picture of me in Jamaica. I paid $10,000 for this experience. Write me a check for, I'll sell it to you for $9,500. I'll give you a great deal. And that doesn't work that way.
Right.
The Lamborghini in particular, I bought it for, I think, $315. I could literally sell that thing for $390, and I put 2,000 miles on it in 4 months. You can't. And that's a ton of fun to me. Like, that gives me more fun than a trip to Jamaica ever will, personally. I get it. It's not for everyone. May not be for you. That's okay. But my argument is, I could set, as long as I can always afford the payments on that thing, and I put 50% down, I can sell it and be out of it. If I go on a vacation, I can't ever sell that and get that money back ever. Yeah. And a lot of people are paying for vacations credit cards, by the way. They won't tell you that. They won't tell you that. Yeah. So that's my argument. Is like, I've always bought cars that are last year additions. Even in an American ones, like my GT350R, what did I buy that for? MSRP, I think, was 72. That's what I paid for it. I have dealers wanting it at 100, 110. And I've had a ton. I know it has like 4,000 miles. I've had 4,000 miles, what I say, on that car. And the fact that I could sell it and make 30 grand if I wanted to is insane. I couldn't go spend 100 grand on vacations or 70 and sell them for 100. You know what I mean? So, like, that's my argument with it. I think in today's world, cars move so fast. I'm not saying, like, if you're only making $10,000 a month, go get a $3,000 car payment. I'm not saying that by any means. But know thyself. Like, I know I'm someone that if you hammered me with a $200 or $200,000 fine tomorrow, like, and I was like, oh, I deserve this. I'm going to figure out how to pay that off even if I don't have the money. And for me, it'd have to be like a 7-figure. But if I got a 7-figure problem show up tomorrow, I know I can figure it out. Yeah. And so I know myself, like, if I had the option, I'm not really into really any cars higher than a Lamborghini or Ferrari. Actually, there's a Ferrari I want. It's an $800,000 car. I probably shouldn't buy a $800,000 car seeing that I just bought a $300,000 car. Like, could I qualify for it? Could I afford it? Yes. But if I did that, it's because I know I'm going to go work so much harder to triple the amount of money that I currently make already. So that's the only reason I would personally do it. Not everyone looks at it that way.
What kind of Ferrari is this?
It's an 812 GTS. So it's last year of the V12s, potentially last year of naturally aspirated, and it's a drop top, which is really rare in V12 Ferraris.
Guess I'll have to check that out.
It's pretty badass.
I mean, I've always been a fan of the 360 Spiders. I mean, now they're 450s and whatever, but like, just high school age, college age.
Yeah, they were sick.
That was my thing, right?
I got my eyes on a 488 GTB or 488 Pista Spider.
So, like, the reason why I bring this up is that your poison cars. My poison cars, right? And it's always irritated me when these people go and grandstand and talk about, like, you shouldn't spend this money on cars, but you should do this and this and this. Is like, why are you projecting your values on me? Like, you go get your nice watch. You go get your big house. You go take 4 vacations a year with your family. Like, go do what you gotta do. Yeah. But leave me and my cars alone.
No, I totally get that. I get that hounded all the time. I get told, don't go work. I'm like, I like work. Like, go enjoy yourself. Go golf. I'm like, I don't like golf nearly as much as I like work. I don't like golf nearly as much as I like driving a car. Yeah. So I totally agree. I think us car people get a lot of slack when we shouldn't. Yeah.
It's like we're doing drugs or something. It's like,
you would think it was the worst thing ever.
Just back off. So in your first full year, you did $2.4 million.
Yeah, that was 2023.
So that's gross profits, I presume, from flips and then assignment revenue.
Oh, that was just flips, or just rental, or just assignments. Sorry, so that was just assignments. Wholesale. And then we had 23. We only did like 20 flips. So it was another 700 or so.
So $3 million between flips. Gross profits from flips and wholesale revenue.
Yeah, technically I think it'd be net from flips, gross from wholesale is how I calculate it.
Yeah. So those are pretty substantial numbers, particularly in Ohio, right? Because the prices in Ohio are not what they are in Phoenix, definitely not what they're in California.
No, yeah.
Right? So walk me through. I'm trying to build a $2.4 million business in Columbus. What are all the things I have to have in place in order to be able to do this?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing you got to have in place is good marketing. But I would say if you don't have, it doesn't matter if you have good marketing if you don't know how to close deals. So the thing I always tell my team to focus on, especially my ACT team, just get a deep enough deal. If it's deep, I've never not moved a deal with a 50K assignment. It's never not happened once. It's only the tight deals. So if you find out their why and you can get it deep enough, you will move the deal, guaranteed. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
how good or bad your dispo person is. You can move the deal.
Mhm.
So we've always focused on getting deep deals, and that's why we've always been able to beat the bigger companies out. And we focus on that by figuring out what they actually need or want. Combination of the two, I think. And from there, you can always go spend more money on marketing. And so that's all we've done is figure out how to get the deep deals, then spend it in our marketing, then build out the team.
Yeah.
It's just this roller coaster.
You make it sound really simple.
I think it is pretty simple. Now, I don't think it's easy. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
But it's find good quality leads, find good people who can close those deals. Like the deals move really easy. If you have a good enough deal, like you can go find the money for it. Like that's what we've started doing is I just buy them and sell them right on the MLS, and we'll move like flips. Like we could have assigned it for 30, and I'll take it to the MLS. Sure, there's some risk, but now I make 50. So you can you can move deals. So I think the biggest piece is know good marketing, become really good at sales. If you have those two things down, the rest of this business is pretty easy.
Yeah. Every business is easy if you get the sales marketing down.
I couldn't agree more.
So let's talk about the marketing.
Yeah.
What are you doing for marketing?
So all we do is inbound. We've never done any of the texting or cold calling that this industry is notorious for. So we started on TV. We got on radio next. Then we went to PPC and Facebook. We haven't had great results for Facebook, but we just keep it going for the fact of branding, trying to grow that.
Okay. So TV, I mean, do you mind sharing how much you spend a month on TV?
So I'll just go off of last month's number. We spent about $90,000 on marketing total. So I believe it was 40, 15, and 25.
Okay. So 40,000 on TV.
Yep.
Before I dive deeper into this, have you mentally prepared for the election?
Yeah, no, I know my TV ads are shot. I know
TV and radio.
Yeah, no, I know they're gone.
Yeah.
I am literally expecting any day now that I get a call like, hey, your TV ad shut up like 50%. Because I also think this election's the ad spend's gonna happen a lot faster or like sooner than last elections.
Yeah, and Ohio, I think, is a battleground state.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. No, I know that marketing is gone. I'm anticipating June, but it wouldn't shock me if it's earlier.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, I know.
This is probably going to be the worst campaign season ever.
Yeah, I agree. So my second half of the year, we haven't figured it out, but it's definitely on our radar, and we're trying to figure it out right now.
Yeah.
Don't know what we're going to do just yet.
Okay.
We have enough leads. I think we'll be able to make up for it. But
okay, so 40K, 15K, 25K. Radio, I presume you're doing with Tony?
Yep. Tony does TV and radio.
Okay, and the PPC, who are you using for that?
One of your recommends.
Bateman?
Yep.
Cool. So and then what is your targeted return on ad spend?
We aim for 4. So last month was like perfect. It was like 4.18 or something like that.
Okay. So in doing that, you're spending the money, you're getting a 4x return on ad spend. What is the process? Someone goes on TV. I'm assuming the tracking numbers are different for each one. Do all three, because they're inbound, all go to an inside sales agent? Does it go to an outside sales agent?
Yeah. So we only have closers. We don't have any follow-up specialists or anything like that.
So no lead managers?
Yeah. And it's because our leads are just hotter.
That makes sense.
We don't, up until recently, we had never broken 400 leads a month. It was last month and 2 other times, I think, we've done that. So we just don't have that many leads, and we're doing about 30 to 40 contracts on that. So we're closing somewhere right around 1 in 13, I think it is, which my understanding is pretty low. But I look at the total revenue more than the closed deals or contracts.
1 in 13.
I know. That's why we're coming to see you this week. Figure out how to close more deals.
I hear that, right? It's a lower conversion rate, but at the same time, it's a deeper.
Oh, yeah.
Fee. So like
our average assignment fee last month was $32,000.
Yeah.
Assignment fee. Like you talk to the other big players, they're somewhere between 18 and 20.
Yeah, they're targeting 15 and 16.
Yeah, in Columbus. Yeah. They're super static at 20.
Yeah. So no, you say 1 in 13 and it's like it's bad, but I'm hearing like the margins again is like, well, that's probably the reason why.
I think so. Yeah.
And I'd rather have lower quantity and higher spreads.
Yeah, I don't need as much operations on the back end to clean it up.
Yeah. Okay. And it could also be just the fact that you don't have lead managers. But
I think that's probably the problem too. And we're working through that now.
So, okay. So it goes to a setter or goes to a closer.
Yep.
And your closer, then at that point, they're locking it up. They're doing a virtual. What?
Yeah. So 9 out of 10 are virtual. Every now and then we're dealing with like 70-year-old sellers. Like we got two. I think you were talking to one of my agents,
Yeah,
Michael.
the crap house.
Yeah. 3 feet of sewer in the basement, guys. So she's just an older lady. And so going to meet her in person is what you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we've really shuffled out, hey, if they're above 70 and they want to do in person, we're probably not going to fight them at all.
Mm-hmm.
If they're below 60, we're going to be like, hey, we don't have to do that anymore and just have a conversation and feel it out. But 9 out of 10 of them, they lock up over the phone via email.
That's pretty good. So $30K virtual.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Ohio's fascinating because I look at Ohio, and you and I have had private conversations about this, but I want to have this on camera. Ohio is like Phoenix. It's like,
I think so.
It's another little guru capital, right? You got Tampa, Florida, which was like the guru capital forever.
Yep.
I think Sean Terry brought it to Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
And now you got Mark Evans out there. You got Tim Broughton there. You got Tiffany, Terry Summers out there.
Austin Rutherford.
Jerry Green. Like, everyone's in Ohio.
Yeah.
Help me understand how you can fit. Because how big is Columbus? What's the population?
We just surpassed 1 million in the total population.
Right.
That's all the suburbs.
And then what are the other big cities in Ohio?
So the biggest two would be Cleveland and Cincinnati after that.
Okay. Do you know what their populations are?
Cleveland's over 1 million. Cincinnati's, I think, 700 or 800,000.
Yeah. So
So
not
3
3
million. Yeah,
between the three of them.
Yeah.
How are there so many big operators out there?
I think that is a great question. I think it goes to show you that, like, man, as long as you do the work, there's an opportunity anywhere. Because we're not nearly as big as Phoenix, but we got some pretty big operators out there. I think everyone you listed has a $3 million plus business.
Right.
And I know, like, Tiffany and Josh, theirs are super profitable. Jerry's, I think, is very profitable. So I think it's going down to, we all just do what we do best. Like, I'm the guy who was always on TV and radio. Tiffany and Josh were really good at direct mail. Austin and Terry stick to just the rental game for the most part. So we just all stick to our niche, and we don't buy into everything else coming out. Like, we have our blinders on, and we go to trusted sources. Like, I think all of us went to Carlos Reyes. At some point got trained by him. I think most of us have had coaching from Jerry as well. So there's commonalities there. So we'll take guidance from professionals or people who are ahead of or where we want to be, but we don't take it from the outsiders, from like family or anyone else who isn't where we want to be in life.
Gotcha. So you're listening to the authorities who are actually doing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or who have done it. Yeah.
Okay. So that's the marketing side. I think we kind of cover that. So they're trying to lock it up. Oh, I guess this gets more a sales conversation. So they're trying to do one call, or they're trying to.
Yeah. So we try to do one call. They don't always happen that way. I think my 2 performing reps are really good at knowing when to back off, and like, I'll be like, why didn't you close that one? They're like, just trust me. And then $70,000 assignment comes in. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So we try to do one close. I think it's something on 60-ish% of our ours are closed on the one, and then the 40% could be follow-ups. Like, they just locked up a deal that was 520 days old in our CRM.
Yeah.
We do about one a year that's over a year old now.
And then
or one a month, sorry.
And then with sales, I've had the incredible honor of being able to work with your team.
Yep.
So there's a lot of different options out there for sales.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not the only one. We kind of mentioned a couple of other ones out there. Why are you guys working with us?
I think we work with you because you're who I resonate the most inside the real estate world. And so, like, I love Jerry Green. I just didn't resonate with his path. I big fans of Tiff and Josh. I don't follow their sales process. And who else is another sales trainer out there? So looking at like Jeremy Miner or the people who are like not necessarily specific to real estate. So Jeremy Miner and Andy Elliott. I resonate with Jeremy Miner pretty well, and I think you probably have a lot of his in common. I've never paid for anything of his, so I only get his free stuff, but his free stuff seems to relate to yours pretty well.
Yeah, his free stuff. I mean, questions-based selling.
Yeah. And I really relate to that. Jeremy Miner, or I'm not Jeremy Miner. Austin or Andy Elliott's.
Mhm.
His energy, I think, is just you need energy, but like, and I'm a pretty high energy guy, I think. But I think he's just a bit too much and very used car salesman. That's how I feel. Don't get me wrong. I think it obviously works for a lot of people, and so for us, it's like I chose you because you're who I resonate with and who I could conform with. And who I could get behind and follow and let my team learn from because I was already on a similar path as yours. And I feel like you've gone a lot deeper in it than I have. And so, hey, if I'm going to go deeper in this in my journey, why not follow the guy who I'm already on the same alignment with?
Yeah. So, and it's been an absolute pleasure working with your team, and I definitely appreciate that. And so then you're talking about deep. So you focus on deeper margins versus volume. So some guys are like, just lock it up, see what we can do. You're more on like, let's lock it up at the right price or don't lock it up.
Yeah, so we're locking up more and more now over the last 6 months because we've learned that we could take chances. But I tell my guys, it's like, hey, I'd rather you guys move 6 deals and make 150K in assignments, which is they'll make with bonuses and everything like 14 or 15K just off of that, and then go get 10 deals at 15K.
Right.
And I've always found that the deeper deals, when there's a headache, deeper deals don't have headaches, and when there is a headache, cool, it's a 50K assignment. I'll gladly let go of 8 to solve the next problem.
It's pretty fascinating, right? Every time, if it's more profitable, it's always easier.
Always.
And
I can always solve their problem. And when I can't solve their problem because it's only a 2K deal, I'm still the asshole. So it's like, why not just go deeper? And then I can come up if a problem arouses.
In my entire career, looking on the realtor side, the larger the commission, the easier the deal. Right? They were just happier with you. They were more grateful. On the wholesaling side, the larger the fee. If I had to make the numbers work, it's already a more stressful transaction.
For all buyers. Yeah, I think we've done 6 or 7 deals over 75, all perfectly smooth. All no issues, no hiccups, closed in 2 weeks. Buyers out the wazoo wanting them.
Right.
No issues.
Yeah. And then you're saying you do stuff off the MLS. So talk to me about selling deals off the MLS.
Yeah, so we started a second market in Cleveland, and we just didn't know that market that well. And I've got some pretty good buyers in Columbus. So instead of like everyone, when you reach out to them via like Investor Lift or something along those lines, they're like, oh, I'm the best buyer in town. And in my experience, if they say they're the best at anything, they're probably a pain in the butt. And it's true. Actually, every time a buyer says they're the best, I'm like, you are actually the worst buyer I've ever worked with, and I never want to work with you again. So taking them to the MLS, we normally just double close on them, and we pre-market them to see, as long as we get a showing or two, I'll typically buy it, as long as the feedback on that first one is close to ask, because we have margins. So that's what we've done to go to that second market. And it's all just a pre-marketing agreement. Once we know there's traction on it, we close on it, and then we just sell it to the end buyer.
Talk to me about the pre-marketing agreement.
So it's just a clause that the MLS wants to see. We're getting like attorney and facts, I think is what they're called, and it's just saying, hey, we have the option to list this. We try to wholesale them first to the few buyers we have in that market. But we haven't found good buyers. Like I can go to Tiffany and Josh. I think they bought 4 off me last month, and they're going to give me really good prices right off the bat.
Right.
Like it's no headache, and I'm like we're always within $1,000 or $2,000 and like a lot of times it's Josh and I playing rock and paper scissors to see who's going to get the deal.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, it's great. But we haven't found that in Cleveland. They're like, oh, well, can you be at 60%? It's like, what? What? It's a $400,000 house. You want to be at 60? Come on. You bought your last one at 84. Where's the difference?
Yeah.
And they're just playing games. So it's like, I don't want to play those games. So it's not worth my headache. I'll just list it on the MLS and field offers and just tell people I'm going to keep it open for 72 hours.
So double close. So just real quick, just to step it back for those listening that aren't familiar with double close. What does double close mean?
Yeah. So double close means we are actually taking title in that. So we'll take title in it and then we'll sell it to the end buyer.
So how does that affect financing?
So conventional is typically pretty fine. We've had some conventional lenders that want to see you own it for like 3 or 4 weeks. That's not a huge deal. FHA is a big deal.
Massive deal.
Yeah, massive. Because you got to own it for 90 days. So we have one that we're actually renting out to someone. It was a livable house. So we rented it out way above market rent. But they just wanted it. And what did we get on that? We had a $5,000 non-refundable deposit. And then they're paying $2,000 a month. On a mortgage, it's only going to be like $1,300 when it's theirs, by the way. And then we're set to close on it like the first week of April.
So they rented it for 3 months so that they can get the financing later on.
Yeah, because they needed 90 days.
Seasoning.
They need the seasoning of me owning it for 90 days. Yeah.
But
But it's a big deal. Like it is over $60K deal, so it's like done.
Yeah, no, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So Ren and I launched Sales Leadership a little over a year ago.
Yep.
Right, a little over a year ago. And when we did it, I believe you were like the second person that signed up.
Yep.
Right. What did you take from that you were able to implement in your business?
Yeah, I think you and Ren have done a phenomenal job. I think what we kind of talked about is I've always understood sales, always been really good at sales, naturally gifted. I think if you went and talked to my last sales manager, he'd be like, he's always got ice in his veins, like never had commission breath, any of those things. I realized most people aren't that way. And so when a salespeople would come on, I'd be like, what the hell are you doing? Like, ask questions. Don't tell them what they need to hear. Like, that never works. And so I struggled with that. I'm reading Deion Sanders' book, and he kind of talks about it in the book that he's had to realize most people don't have his gift.
No.
Like, most people don't have 411 speed. Like, most people aren't as confident as he is. And most people will never work as hard as he did to understand the routes and stuff of those things. And he knew what not to do. Like, he was like, at the combine, he didn't bench. And his argument was, Jerry Rice is not going to lay across my chest and allow me to put 2 hands on him and bench him 20 times. So he's like, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so that was what I had to overcome and realize I've got to learn how to manage people if I'm going to grow this business to where I want to go. And I felt like you guys had some good stuff going on. I like your sales training. So I was like, what can we do here? So what did I learn from that? I learned that, like, man, salespeople are super emotional, and you got to manage those emotions. And you got to continually always be educating them. Stuff I didn't really think about. I've never had a sales manager educate me. I always did my own education. Like, I would always, if I didn't sell a deal, I would go find a book that, like, wherever I was in the process that I struggled with.
Right.
I guess it's not normal. Or I'd go listen to podcasts, or I record my calls, and like, or my last sales jobs were all in person. I would record those interactions and then replay them and say, oh, I shouldn't have said this. This is where her tone changed and I missed it. I guess most people don't do that. And so you got to do that with your salespeople and sit them down and help them understand those things. And realizing when a performer's not performing, it probably has nothing to do with the job. You got to figure out what it is. And that's really helped me. So I was looking to hire 3 or 4 sales reps. And so I really took that education that you guys provided to make sure I was going to be the best version that I could be at that moment in time. Thing is, I'm a slow learner. So it definitely helped. And I that was October of 21. Michael Parker started with me January of 22, and he's now with me for over a year. He's consistently closing $150,000 a month. So it worked with him. Hasn't been perfect, but he's that kind of person that doesn't need perfection. He just needs continuing improvement, and he respects me enough to know that, hey, Michael's trying to get better. Michael is getting better. I'm okay with that. And so I just came back because I needed to double down, and I brought like a whole team entourage with me.
It was awesome.
Because I think the only reason I've been really good at growing and getting better at things is repetition and doing the work. I don't typically do things well the first time. I just have to keep going and going and going and going, and because I don't quit is eventually why I get good. And so I think it's the same thing with leading people. And so that's what my whole journey in this year is leading people. And so any chance I get to lead people, and so that's why I came back. I got to get better at that, and it's my weakest.
Yeah. Well, what I loved in our most recent event, you bringing your team, was that they get to digest it. And so the reason why it's important for me to have my team there is because they can hold me accountable.
Yeah.
right? When I learn something and I don't do it, well, there's no one to hold me accountable but me, and I'm still a human.
Yeah.
I'll still make excuses
All the
from
time.
time to time. It's like, that's not that important right now. When the team knows what the process is and what's important and why we have to do it this way, and I cut corners, they're like, why are you cutting corners? Like, it's not that big a deal. They're like, no,
Yeah.
it is important. Here's why it's important. And they'll call me out on my own BS, right? So like everything I do, I try to have my team involved on the same training now, because now we can move together as a group versus me taking the lead and waiting for everyone else to catch up.
Yeah. No, I agree. That was the whole reason for bringing them. Morgan's really taken on hiring. We have this like crazy goal to like 8x our sales team.
We or Michael?
Yeah, definitely Michael, the guy right here. The team's bought in because they think it's possible, like because we could just turn the dial on marketing. And so Morgan's really managing hiring and the processes, and we're looking at either resourcing a recruiter or bringing one in-house. Leela's training a property manager, and we'll probably be bringing on another one, and then a TC. And then she takes care of all of our financial admin work too and manages that person. And so the sales leadership taught them how to like manage those people too. So I almost think you could just call it leadership training.
You could. The only reason
it's not as sexy though.
Well, the reason we call it sales is because there's levels to managing, right? Like leveraging, managing a front desk gal is different than an office manager. Is different than chief marketing officer.
Yes,
is different than salespeople. Salespeople are the freaking craziest people on the planet. You and I are not manageable, and we're trying to attract people like you and me to manage.
Yep.
Right? Like, how good are you at putting those in a CRM?
Yeah. I remember when I worked for the new build, they'd be like, yeah, I just got yelled at by our sales director because you have no notes in the CRM. And he's like, the only reason I can get you off the hook is if I list off a customer, you know everything about them that we need you to know. I could do it.
Yeah.
But it goes back to like being dyslexic. The only reason I can read now is because I've remembered every single word. I don't know how to sign this stuff. My daughter's 2. She just sounded out rainbow. And I was like, wait, what? Like I can't comprehend that.
So is that dyslexia? You can't sound out.
I can't sound
phonetics
out.
or phonics.
Yeah,
doesn't work.
Doesn't work. When the name's broken down, I'm like, what the hell does this mean? If it's not, the only reason I can do it is because it's like the only reason I can read today is because my grandparents spent 2 years pronouncing every word to me until I could say it, and then
it's just memory. This is like
it's all memory.
You're reading English like some people read Chinese.
Yeah.
Right? Because like you can't sound out Chinese characters.
Yep.
You just have to know what that word is.
Yep.
Or you're hosed.
Yeah. So if there's a word that I can't break down the words inside of it, I have to Google it.
So you can't do, what was it, contextual? Like you can't look at it and like, well, this probably means this, like root words, none of that.
Correct. Nope. No idea.
So yeah, you have like, it's a massive disadvantage that you've been able to overcome.
Yeah. It took a lot of work.
So you've had to, and by the way, like from when you first started with us in sales leadership, I mean, you're basically solopreneur with a guy that it wasn't quite working out.
Yeah, he left shortly after.
So now you're running a massive operation. So I mean, I think it's kudos to you for going and taking action, and you're willing, right? You're pushing through all the adversity. So you've had to hire and fire, a lot, starting probably in your landscaping career all the way through where you are today.
Yep.
So what are your biggest lessons? We'll start with firing. What are your biggest lessons in letting people go?
Biggest lessons in letting people go I learned from you guys. Make it about them, and that, hey, taking the blame. It's when a sales rep doesn't work out, it is all my fault. But getting them to understand that, and then they're okay with going that. Their ego goes out the way. If they had any chance of being good, they have some confidence and a little bit of that ego. And so when you go fire them, if they have potential working out, they're going to fight you on it, right? Whereas if you take the blame, hey, our training's not good enough, we haven't given you the best opportunities, but with that being said, I don't want this to hurt you and impact your family anymore. I think there's better opportunities for you. They're more okay with that. So I learned letting them go gracefully and making it about you instead of them. And then 2, like holding them accountable to numbers so they could see it coming. When they see it coming, they'll leave, and there's no hard feelings. There's no, you're an asshole. It's a lot easier that way. And I think the last thing is like, don't hold on to a non-performing rep longer than 60 days. Like, most big corporates, you always figure that they fire people too soon. But when you understand a business, man, if someone's not performing for 60 days, they're probably not going to bounce back.
Yeah.
So like you just got to let them go and realize it's not feelings, it's business.
It's just not a fit,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not necessarily them. It's not necessarily us.
Yeah.
Not everyone's
Their
destined.
attitude changed about that thing, and it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had so many conversations I can think back. It's like, I don't want to like have this conversation with Michael again. You know, I'm resistant to it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know what the expectations are,
Yeah.
and I say, hey, Michael, hey, you know, help me understand what's going on. Like after 3 of those in a row, you're just not going to show up to the meeting.
Yeah, you're either going to change or you're changing something. It's either, hey, you don't need to have this meeting anymore because you're hitting the numbers that need to be hit, or you're just going to exit.
Yeah. Coach up or coach out. You're going to be updating your resume before the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they do it naturally.
Right. But now you're not the bad guy because we set those appropriate expectations.
Yep.
What about hiring? What are some biggest things in hiring?
So what we've learned is hiring has to be a full-time gig. So we've now got Morgan in charge of that. So, and two, you got to turn on a marketing wheel for that to make sure you always have endless amount of people coming in. And we're doing a lot of outreach. We're trying to find people who are already employed. I think you and I talked about it the last time is, when's the last time you ever updated your resume?
2010, 2011.
Yes. I think I did it like briefly before I got the job in 2018, but it was like, I worked for myself from 2011 to 2018. And so that was pretty simple. But I still get job offers, right? I still have people recruiting me to come work for them. And they haven't seen my resume. Lila's worked for me. She worked for my landscaping business. It's over a decade she's worked for me. I don't think she's ever updated her resume. But she gets several $100,000 job offers yearly, like 2 or 3. She'd be like, hey, can you match this person's pay? And I'm like, no. But I promise you we'll make a lot more in 10 years. And she's like, yeah, I believe that to be true.
Yeah.
So it's always having that wheel going on, and that's all Morgan's focused on. She's doing a lot of outreach. We're trying to figure out events to get to people, just get a lot of people coming in our door, so we have a lot of at-bats with those people, and we'll find the right people. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then 2, taking them through a long hiring process to make sure they're the right fit, having them experience the job on the front end, so they don't get in and be like, I don't like being on the phone. I actually just let someone go because 2 weeks in, they're like, I don't like emotions. I'm like, what? One, I've never met a job like that doesn't have a lot to do with emotions, unless it's a factory job. I've never done a factory job, but that's the only thing that I could like fathom that there's no emotion in.
Yeah.
But managing people, sales of any type, very like, if you were that logical, you'd be Jeff Bezos, right? Like, and even then, he went through a divorce, so like, everything he did can be. Maybe it was logical. I don't know, but I'm saying like, there aren't many people who just base off logic, so everything's emotional. So I missed that in the interview process, that he didn't want to deal with emotions. Our sellers are super emotional. Most of my employees, including me, like I'm super emotional. So I was like, if you don't like emotions, like that means you're not gonna want to be around me.
It's true, but you know it's funny because like if you look at my profile and everything, I was like, I'm not quite Mr. Spock, but I'm pretty out there, right? I mean that's that engineering side. I was actually having a conversation with a good friend this week about this, and she was like, yeah, you might be closed off emotionally, right? But you have the emotional awareness to be able to understand the other person, right? And we talk about sympathy versus empathy. You don't need to feel their emotions.
No.
You just have to understand where it's coming from and let them know that you're aware of it.
Yep.
Right? And it sounds like so scientific when you say it that way. It's like it's so sanitized, but it's really all it has to be.
Yeah. I think I'm really good at just being aware of emotions, but not having emotions.
Yeah.
And sometimes that could be a fault too.
Yeah. No, I think that's it. Potentially, I don't know if it's a situation where if you're a high performer or not necessarily just a high performer, but you know, we talk about different levels of trauma, right? Just the things that we grew up with that kind of like, was it the way that we've been compressed, what's the word? When they create diamonds, right? Like,
yeah. It's all the pressure.
All the pressure, right? Like most of us wilt.
Yep.
Some of us come out stronger.
Yep.
But we're not necessarily like emotionally mature.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that. And then, you know, one thing we're talking about this week and the last week with marketing on the sales leadership call was you do a podcast.
Yeah. Just getting that started.
Any expectations as far as the podcasting leading into recruiting?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest reason I started the podcast was to recruit people. I think in this business, it's talked about all the time, wholesaling and fixing and flipping. Anyone can do it. And I think just in the journey we're in since COVID, being your own business owner is talked about more. But I don't think it's talked about how hard it is and how lonely it is. And I'm not sure it's for everyone. And so I think when you're posting content, I shoot a lot of content for Facebook, Instagram, all of those things, and the podcast, and you express those things, you're going to attract people who are like, man, I want to be a part of something bigger. I thought I could do this myself. I'm just missing a key piece, whatever that piece may be, and hopefully I can fill that void.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the biggest reason I started the podcast was to attract people who were struggling to get to whatever level they wanted to be, and hopefully they could fit inside my organization and get to that level that they want to be.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? The part about like, because social media says anyone could do it.
Yeah, definitely does.
Right. And you know, and in a lot of ways, I'm happy for that because we're showing society there's another way forward. At the same time, I was talking to I was just in California this past weekend. Was hanging out with my best friend. He sold his company for some stupid amount of money, right? And his wife is a life coach.
Yeah.
So, and we were talking about this with my wife, who is in the business in a different capacity. Not everyone's designed to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone's designed to be a business owner. And we are guilty as entrepreneurs, pushing people. Hey, go work for yourself. Go do this, right? And we were projecting people, leading again people the way we want to be led. Versus how they might want to be led. And so we're imposing this will, and I'm starting to come to this conclusion. Maybe I'm wiser, or maybe I'm just continuing to give up even more on humanity. I don't know. It's like not
it's one of them.
Not everyone is designed for this, right? Like if you're not willing, like one of the requirements is be able to look at adversity and overcome it. And part of that is having a strong ego. You can't have a strong ego without, being, a venturer, captain, maverick, individualist, strategist. Like these are all profiles where your will to win is stronger than adversity that you have to overcome. That's not most people.
No.
That's less than 10% of the population.
I agree. But everything that's going on, the narrative out there now is that we can all go be business owners and be happy.
Yeah.
I don't know that many business owners that are actually happy. And I know a lot of business owners.
Yeah.
Like very few are happy.
I was on Instagram earlier today, just screwing around in some free time. And Chris Jefferson was made some video about business funding. He's like, let me get this straight. All you guys out here with no business experience are getting $500K in business loans. What are you guys even doing with that? Right? But there are people out there promising you get $500K in loans.
I couldn't find that kind of money in early 2020 when I was bleeding $40,000 a month, but maybe it's out there now.
Maybe it's out there now. So what does your life look like now, right? So you get fired in 21. And you don't know if real estate's it for you. Yeah. What does your life look like then, now compared to then?
Man, it's really good to reflect on that. I think the big thing is I work a lot more, but I enjoy it. I enjoy work more than I ever have. It's because I'm building team and helping people get to where they want to get in life. And with that brings me a ton of joy. As I've made more money and I've spent a little bit more money and I get to go to car shows and things like that. And you see all these people and they come up to you like, man, that's so cool. How do I get there? And like, you can give them a little taste of like what it would take to get there and inspire others. Getting to talk to other people, other business owners who are just getting started and inspiring those, that always brings me a ton of joy. And just showing people like, you don't have to come from anything. You don't have to have this business background. You don't have to have the greatest education. So that brings me a ton of joy. So just if I were to look back over it, I'm a lot happier now just because I figured out I get to control all my happiness. Like, and just give you like truth of what's going on in my life. I'm fighting for custody of my daughter. I can only see her 4 hours a week. I'm supposed to see her Sundays, but her family, my ex's family, doesn't think I'm capable of having my 2-year-old daughter for 8 hours. So they don't follow the court's rules. So like, you have kids. If you were told you couldn't see your kids, how would you react?
You're pretty bad.
Would that be arguably the hardest thing you ever go through?
I mean, I think of the scene of Wolf of Wall Street where he slugs his wife. I'm not saying I would do that, but my brain goes to that scene.
Yep, my brain does too. And I will say, when you're a decent person, you don't do that. But I will say, like,
I understand it.
yes, I that is totally true. So I people are like, how are you happy? And I'm like, I wake up and choose happiness. Like, I have no qualms with my ex. It's actually the court system and everything I have qualms with that any of this is allowed. So every day I wake up and I'm very grateful for her. I'm very grateful that she's a fantastic mother. My daughter lives in a very safe area, like one of the nicest areas in town. My ex has her master's degree. So my daughter talks better than almost any 2-year-old. Like people know she's 2 because she's a tiny little nugget, but everyone's like, she talks better than like 4-year-olds. I'm like, yeah, that's her mother. Her mother like knows how to do that really well. So like I find the good in everything. Just having to let someone go, I find the good in that. That hey, they're freed up to go find out what they're passionate. That gentleman you talked about when I was a one-man team with him, I talked to him every like 2 or 3 months. He's had like 3 or 4 jobs in the year, but he's happy. And like that brings me joy knowing that. So I think it comes down to like you realize that I've realized happiness is a choice, and like I'm gonna do what I want to do, and not let other people like influence me. I've said it for a long time. It's like, do you pay my bills? No. Okay, I'm gonna do what I want. I'm not hurting anyone. It's not illegal. We're gonna keep going forward.
Yeah, I have learned to not take input from. If it has to be one of these two.
Yeah.
Either you've done something I want to do.
Yep.
Or you'll show up at my funeral, even when it's raining. Right? If it's not one of those two things, your input is completely invalid. And even then, if you show up to my funeral, like I'm not gonna take business advice from you.
Yeah.
Right?
I will go to those people that will show up at my funeral and rain and get business advice from them. Not because I believe it's gonna be the best business advice, but I think it's gonna be the best advice they can give me, and they know me personally. And so like I can craft it a little bit. Very rarely do I take their business advice, but like I do acknowledge it and hear it because I do think there is a point to that.
Yeah. Well, you're a lot more mature than I am, for sure.
I don't know about that.
We need to hire 9 salespeople in the next 5 weeks. We launched our Done For You sales service just a month ago, and the demand for it has been absolutely crazy. We have all these people reaching out to us saying our sales service has been so helpful for them. Please get us more salespeople.
If you are in high ticket sales or looking to get into that space, if you want a calendar filled up with people raising their hand saying, call me at this time, please sell me, I want to be sold to by a highly experienced salesperson, we are looking for you to have that role. We want to take people who are good and make them great. People who want to be held accountable the same way Michael Jordan would want his coach to hold him accountable, to take him to that next level.
So if you want Ian Ross or myself to train you to get better at sales, if you want to be able to control your income, decide exactly how much money you make, and you want to work at a company where you're valued and appreciated, we encourage you, click the link below. However, we're only hiring superstars. If you're not A+ caliber, don't click below.
So besides the financial freedom and the impact you can make, like what else do you love about real estate?
Tax benefits. I like keeping my money. I don't think the government does a good job spending it.
Really?
I haven't seen it yet, but maybe I don't pay that close attention to all the good they spend money on. I think the other, for me, it's the monetary benefit and providing for my family, and then knowing I can go help others. Like that is literally the biggest two things for me. Is if I can help others. Like I donated $10,000 for like Christmas or toy drives last year, and Morgan and Leela took all the toys. Like they came back like crying. Yeah. They're like, and they struggled with toys or Christmases at some point in their life, and so it's like it felt really good that we could give that amount, and we want to. Our goal is to 10x it this year. Like we want to rent a whole like U-Haul and drop that off. That's our goal this year. Yeah. And so to me, it's all about the impact and helping others. And that's why I want a big business, because I feel like if I have a big business, it would be more impactful than that next person who has the same business as me.
So you're talking about being big. You're talking about biggest in the Midwest. So we already talked about Ohio.
Yeah.
Who are the big names in the Midwest?
So honestly, I don't know. Outside of Ohio, I don't know that many people. You have Minnesota home buying guys, but I don't know if you call Minnesota Midwest anymore. And then Tiffany and Josh. In the single family sector.
Well, so let's talk about national, right? Like the Gorilla.
Yep.
New Western. And I think they do between 15 and 20,000 a year.
Yeah. We would like to get to that level.
Is that the aspiration?
That is the aspiration. It is to get in the way and be the hedge fund. Jeff Bezos just started a company, or it's backed by Amazon anyway.
Sure.
So I don't know how much involvement he actually has. My goal is to get in their way at some point, that they're going to realize that, hey, we can't get past Mike, or we're going to work with him and write a big check. Either way, I figure it's a big check. And either way, I figure I can do something good with that.
Yeah. So I got a chance to meet the owner, and he's a really
Of New Western?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really smart guy. Maybe someday he'll come on the podcast. I don't know, Stu, if you're watching, right? Like,
Please.
Maybe someday. He just has a different perspective, right?
What's his perspective?
It just has nothing to do with houses, right? It has nothing to do with marketing or sales. It is just creating a plan for the next 5 to 10 years, and then just steadily making progress on that plan. Like, it's a big, hairy, audacious goal, broken it down to months at a time, and then executing month in, month out, no exceptions.
So I'm reading Good to Great, and it like goes over the top 10 businesses of the 90s that really like outperformed the whole market, and that's all they did. And like that's all they talked about. And like it was the leader never made it about him, which I make it about me way too often. Like I'm after reading this book and like sales leadership twice now, like I'm ashamed how much it's about me, which is why I'm not a 9-figure business, because it's way too much about me. So that's my journey, is not make it about me. Don't bring up what I would do in any situation going forward. And so like in Good to Great, that's all they talk about. All those leaders never made it about them, and they never thought the success was because of them. They always said it was their team. And like, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't have success without my team, and I truly believe my team is more important than me. But there have been times where I've said, we only did this because of me. Well, if you're saying it, you probably believe that at some extent. So I got to eliminate that completely. And so, but what you just said, all they do is have a good plan, believe in their plan, and just keep doing it no matter what happens, no matter the ebbs and flows. Don't stop. Like Kroger, do you guys have Krogers out here?
We call it Fry's. It's the same company.
Okay. Yeah. It is actually. I knew that.
Yeah.
So Kroger went through this journey in like the 70s and 80s of no one wanted these like small, like grocery stores. They always wanted these super centers. The amount of money they spent on their super centers was the next 12 years of profit. Like they didn't know it was going to pan out, but now they're the number one grocery chain in America.
Are they number one?
If not number one, they're number two.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, they talk about level 5 leadership, right?
Yeah.
In Good to Great, and the 20-mile march. So after hearing Stu talk about, they don't have quarterly strategy meetings, they have monthly strategy meetings. It's like, well, guys, we got to get to a point where we're having monthly strategy meetings where we're not talking about here's the goal for Q1 or here's the goal for Q2. Like, here is the initiative for February through April. And by the end of February, here's what we've done. By the end of March, here's what we have done. By the end of April, here's what we've got done. Like that resolution and commitment to execution and accountability, I would say, is probably the reason why I haven't hit all my goals.
100%. Accountability for sure. Accountability is my biggest problem.
Yeah. So then what is your purpose? Like what keeps you going?
I think what keeps me going, technically, an orphan's defined as someone who was missing one of or both of their parents. So I had my mom in my life my entire time. She didn't raise me, but she was there. I've never known my dad. And like the people who didn't have a parent, a lot of them were told they couldn't become things. A lot of them didn't become things. And so I believe I was placed on this earth to take it to as far as I can go. And to me, that's $1 billion company, to show that like, even if your parents aren't here, they don't believe in you, you can still do it. That is why I keep going. That's why I'll never stop. Like nothing will ever stop me. Is I believe there's some little boy out there who's missing his dad or mom or both, who's questioning what he should do in life, if he should even continue to live. And I want to be that inspiration for them that, hey, even if you didn't have, like I didn't have anyone at my sports games. My grandparents had to work to provide for me. That's why I probably never got really great at sports. They were never in the stands. I remember my senior year, I had a really good game, and my coach came, he's like, dude, I think I can get you D2. Do you want it? I was like, no. And he said, I bet your grandpa's proud of me. I was like, he had to work. And so I know what that feels like. And so when I think a lot of young men go through that when their dads aren't there, whether it's because they have to work or they're just not in the picture, I want to be that inspiration for people to like keep going and you can achieve whatever it is. It doesn't matter if your family's not there.
Yeah.
You're not at a disability. Maybe your problem, but it's not your fault. And you can
Yeah.
get past that.
And that one definitely resonates with me because in all the years I played basketball, my dad's only been to one game,
Yeah.
right? So like, and even when he was there, he wasn't present. Like he brought the newspaper,
Yeah.
right? Like that definitely resonates with me. How do you plan to connect and inspire this young man who doesn't have both his parents?
Yeah, no. I think for me, I use cars a lot of times. I go to these car shows and there's a lot of young men there and just have conversations with them on just working hard and continuing to drive even when you can't see the end goal. Don't give up when things get hard. So I think that's step one. Step two is like through my daughter, actually. Assuming she's going to date men at some point, being the best father, being present. So like, I think going through the custody battle and only seeing her for 4 hours, it really, like my team knows not to call me. Like if they call me, I won't answer. And they know that. And if I do answer, they're like, I know you're with Izzy. I'll be off in 2 seconds. And so for like the first 8 or 9 weeks I had her, I didn't have my phone within reach. And so I could connect through them just by being a good parent and all of her friends. And then being like the inspiration through them that, hey, Michael's always like, whatever Izzy wants within reason, like I'm there. And I'm not going to give her everything. I don't want people to think that. But I'm going to be super present. I'm going to be at everything, every parenting thing, every sporting thing, and I'm not going to miss it. I'm going to make sure all of her friends know that like they can do all that. And then teaching those young women what to look for in young boys and young men as she gets in high school and what to run from. Like run from the 15 and 16-year-old, 17-year-old Mike, who a lot of times people perceive as the cool guy, the guy that's got it all together, and that's not the truth at all. And so just influencing those people and as much as possible, and then two, like eventually creating a program where I can hire those high school kids who aren't going to go to college, which I think going to college is becoming more and more acceptable. But I know a decade ago it was like I went to college for a year, got kicked out, and didn't tell anyone. Like I paid for college and went to 2 classes for. It was, 4 semesters? And then my grandpa opened the letter from Ohio State saying that I'd been kicked out. That did not go over well.
What'd you get kicked out for?
I failed out. By like, you don't show up to class, you get zeros.
Yeah. I think that's the way it works.
Yeah.
What's your biggest struggle today?
Oh, man. It definitely comes down to leadership, holding people accountable, and just managing people. That's what I got to get better at. That's my biggest weakness by far.
Does your team tell you that?
Yeah, definitely. I knew that going in,
Yeah.
but they definitely reaffirmed that too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing is for me, the best way to lead them is to empower them to challenge me.
Yeah.
And it maybe sounds counterintuitive, but like, I want to be challenged. I don't want to have the best ideas because if I have the best ideas, we are capped.
Yeah. It comes back to good to great. Like you're a level 4 leader if you have all the best ideas. And that means the second you step away, your company fails.
Right.
Unless you happen to get lucky and find a level 5 leader, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, have a succession plan with a level 5 leader.
Which probably doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I have a succession plan anymore. I was told this weekend by my daughter that she's taking over the company.
There you go.
Right. It's like, okay, I mean, you're 12. Like, what qualifications do you have?
Yeah. Well, how old's the one with the broken elbow?
7.
See, she could take it over. She's tough.
She is tough. She is tough. Yeah.
So with her grit and your 12-year-old already painting the vision, I think you got it figured out.
I hope so. But the thing is, I never asked this of them, you know?
Yeah.
I was never like, hey, I want this for you. I've never once said, I want this for you. It's always been like, you do what you think is best.
Well, I think that means you're being a good parent. I think so many parents try to force their kid down this like funnel of like, oh, I want them to be soccer or softball, football, whatever it is, or science, or be a doctor or a lawyer. It's like, no, let the kid be whatever the kid wants to be. Like it's their life.
Right. The only thing I've ever required of them is to be good at martial arts. Right. And that's just because they're girls. If they were boys, I probably wouldn't be worried so much.
Yeah, no, I do want to get my little girl into martial arts or wrestling or something for the fact I wanted her to be able to she's a peanut. Like her mom's 5 foot tall. So I'm like, self-defense would make me feel. Like, go to
that's
bed.
the only thing I
I
require.
will let you stay out a little bit later in high school, knowing that you have a little bit of self-defense skills.
Yeah, what was it? It was I think it was Chet Holmes' book, it's the Ultimate Sales Machine, right?
Yeah.
Talks about like the 17 or like, hey, like your daughter is stuck alone. Do you want her to know Taekwondo or not? It's like, yes, absolutely.
Not gonna be hurt.
How are you measuring success?
Ooh, that is tough. For me, I'm measuring success by right now. It's not necessarily financial. I've always been able to like grow the financial ladder, pretty easy. Like whatever monetary goal I set out there, like I've never not hit it. So for me, success being present and getting more time with my daughter, and then 2, building out a team that like runs itself without me. That's what I'm really working on right now. That is my weakest link, like my entire life. And so if I can figure that out, I will have grown, I think, substantially. And then I can buy back time, which I'll probably just buy back with more work, but still.
Yeah, that's the one thing. We were talking about this earlier. We were a whale club I do with Paul Sparks, and we're talking about how, in theory, we tell our wives that we're going to do this because it's going to buy us back more time.
That's why I'm single, because like that's what I
And
told
every time we buy back more time,
we just go work more.
we fill it with something else.
Like something harder, something that costs more money that we have to work because like we have no money anymore.
Yeah, it's this programming we have. What is your superpower?
Man, I think most people would say my superpower is just like a tenacity or grit to keep going, even when there is no end in sight. We really struggled fourth quarter of 22. Like we had lost money for 4 or 5 months in a row, and like to the tune of like $400,000.
Wow.
Yeah, and your bank accounts are slipping very quickly. And this is like 12 months ago. I was selling houses in 3 days, and I'd never not sold a house in 3 days. So, and 12 months later, it's like my house is on the market for 90 plus days and no offers. Like that hurts. So I just have this tenacity. It goes back to like, I mean, I remember I was talking with my grandma when I was in like 4th or 5th grade. It was snow. We get like an inch or two. I'd get up at 4 a.m., go shovel all the driveways before the bus picked me up at 7, and then shovel them again before the homeowners got home. And then the next day when I come home from school, she'd have like all of this stuff, money, cookies, cake, movie passes, whatever. Because like I'd go knock on their doors before storm and, hey, you want me to shovel? They're like, well, what do you want to pay me? I was like, I'll just do the work and you give me what it's worth to you. And it always worked out in my favor.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to overpay, or it's hard to underpay an 8-year-old.
I totally agree. Looking back, man, I had it made. Life was so good.
Your expenses were pretty minimal.
Yeah, I didn't have expenses. I didn't pay for anything. Like I remember mowing grass. At one point, I was mowing 20 yards in middle school. Grandpa was paying the gas bill.
Yeah.
And like any mower maintenance too.
Yeah.
I might have to help him change out the blades, but like I didn't pay for it.
I'm pretty sure though he was happy with that investment.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. What is the biggest regret you've had?
Oh man. I think it goes back to programming actually. Relationships. I've edited every relationship, not because the partner was bad. It was all me. Like, and so like that's my biggest regret in life is ending relationships, because I hadn't figured out myself. So that's been weighing on me for a while now.
Do you feel like you're better at that now?
Better, yeah. Figured it out. 100% no, but like well on the way to figuring it out.
What are you doing to figure yourself out?
Oh, I've been going to therapy like twice a week for 2 years now, 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the biggest eye-opening, I don't know, exercise or thought experiment or whatever it is they do in there?
So I don't know if I do any exercise, but talk about. So I guess to like get into the nitty gritty with relationships. So I grew up in abusive. My mom's boyfriends were always abusive, and so that's all I saw. But they always loved her, and so like subconsciously, that rang true with me. So I thought when you loved a woman, you beat them. Like I'm talking about. My mom's been in the hospital. Like I didn't see her for weeks because she was beat so bad. And so subconsciously, like when you're dating people, this goes back to like high school. When you're dating people in high school and as a young man, in that 3 to 6 months when things start to get serious, like I would start to feel something and I'd be like, no, done. And I'd just break up with them. And that happened time and time again. And it happened with my ex. My ex, who I had my kid with, was my first relationship over 6 months ever. And it got to the point where I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why I have to end it, but I like, we've got to part ways. And it's because subconsciously I thought I would physically hurt her.
Mhm.
And so I had to work through that. That like, no, that's not me. I've never hurt anyone. I won't say I've never not hurt anyone, but like I've never hit a woman or anything like that. And I would never
Yeah.
do that. And I can control who I'm going to be. But I didn't know any of that.
Right.
Like I'd gone through, since I started dating and when I was 16, I'm 32 now, 16 years. So 14 years. So this is when I started to figure it out and had no idea that was programmed in me. And so like having to unprogram that or realize that like, hey, no, they have no control over, like, that's not you. You get to control that.
Right.
Was really hard. So like that's my biggest regret is not figuring that out earlier.
Yeah. I mean, who knows what programming we have that we need to undo. And I think that's, for me, one of the biggest exercises in the last year or two working with Paul Sparks is like the questions I never asked myself.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'll give you an example. I've been pretty bad with financing for a lot of my career. Right. Like, even though I learned all these things like pay yourself first and this and that in your personal life, it just never translated to business.
Yeah.
Right. Because in business, you got to reinvest, you got to put it all back into the business. Right.
That's what we tell
Hustle and
ourselves.
grind. Right.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Right. And so then you read profit first, like, oh, I can pay myself first.
Yeah.
I have permission now to pay myself first. So you start doing that. In principle, like logically, it makes very simple sense. But you've got all this programming inside of you, right? Like that you have to hustle, you have to grind, or what are some other things? Like having traumatic memories in sitting in a conference room with my accountant, just staring at the P&L. I was like, which expense am I going to cut? Because every single one of these expenses
Is
necessary. But the P&L is negative month after month.
How necessary are they?
Exactly, right? But I didn't have the wherewithal. I was like, okay, well, if this doesn't work, what else can I do?
Yep.
It was just, I need these expenses. So there's all this programming we have within us from whatever other sources that we need to remove. The thing I always talk about, being the oldest of 6 boys in an immigrant family. Feelings were not something we were attached to. Feelings were unacceptable.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Got to undo that programming. And that one's still a work in progress.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, I'm
Have
with
you completely undone any programs that you needed to undo?
I wouldn't say I've done it professionally.
Okay.
Right? Like there's been a lot of introspection. One benefit of being an introvert is I can drive around with my car in silence and just think.
Yeah, that's really good for me too.
Yeah. So I think between that and then having, friends like Brad Chandler, Andy Yatch, who can tell you what's wrong. Again, Paul Sparks, have a mentor like Nick Peterson. They say things, they're like, I've never looked at this problem from this angle. Right? Because you just look at it from your default angle. It's like, well, if you just look at it from this way, it's like, well, that's pretty stupid what I've been doing this whole time.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Like, coming to your sales management corner. I was like, oh yeah, right.
Right.
If they didn't need managed, they wouldn't work for me.
Yeah. If they were excellent and resourceful, they wouldn't work for you. 100%, right? And, or on the flip side, our administrative people, they get so crazy. Like, I hate these people. Why can't they be detail-oriented? Well, if they were, you wouldn't have a job.
Yep. It goes both ways.
It absolutely goes both ways. Last question here is there any book you've gifted more than any other?
Because we are in that like whole fad right now, and I go to the gym and there's a ton of young men there. Alex Hormozi's book, $100 Million Leads. He sold me on that whole like book thing about way too many. So I think that's one, but two, like a lot of new business owners don't understand how important leads are or how to get them. And I think that book breaks it down at like a 3rd grade reading level is what he says, and like the pictures and stuff. I've read that book 4 or 5 times since it came out. So I've given that book a ton. And then another book is just a leadership book. It's blanking me right now, but you and I talked about it last time I was here.
There's Extreme Ownership, How Leadership Actually Works, 21 Laws of Leadership.
It's the 9 Circles.
Gapology.
Yes, Gapology. I've given that book quite a bit. There's 2 people in my life I typically talk to. People who are stuck at being that solar entrepreneur. They don't know how to grow, and it's because they're terrible leaders. Or the people getting started in business, and they don't know how to get their first sale, but it's because they don't know leads and sales. Yeah. And so that's why I'm giving those 2 books.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? Like this whole journey is like, it's marketing, which is really hard when you don't know anything, but it's actually the easiest to master.
I agree.
Right? And then it's sales, which is a journey, and it's leadership. and it's finance. And the thing I hate most about finances is that none of it's intuitive. It's all counterintuitive. Like looking at balance sheets, like, okay, so I bought this property in 2021, but I sold it in 2022. So it's realized cost and revenue in 22, but in 21, it was just a balance sheet expense. Or like my accountant must have looked at me like I'm a complete idiot, an imbecile for so many years. Like, what do you mean that when I pay my credit card bill, that's not an expense?
You've already booked it over here last month, Steve.
I know, but like, I mean, I must ask that question probably like 10 different times, trying to like hope to hear a different answer. Like, no, you already spent it.
Yeah. I got lucky. I realized that like numbers, not being able to read, numbers always came really well to me. So like I figured that out at a pretty young age. But yeah, most people are in the same place.
When we used to do workshops and I would break down how to calculate a P&L off of flipping in QuickBooks, man, that was like an hour. Just showing how to classify and balance sheet and converting from balance sheet to expense on day of closing.
Yep.
That was always an ordeal. And it was always like really impactful. But man, like it felt like time stopped because like we couldn't move on
until it's done.
Until we figured out the P&L. Right? So like we can do P&L on spreadsheets, right? Like that's easy.
Super easy.
Super easy. Documenting in QuickBooks, that's an ordeal that a lot of people, there were a lot of questions there. So I want you to think about the last thoughts to leave all the listeners with before we do that. Guys, you got value today, please subscribe, share this with your friends, share this with your families, your colleagues. Don't keep us a secret, right? A rising tide lifts all boats, trying to create millionaires over here. So please share with your colleagues. So what are the last thoughts you want to leave everybody with?
Yeah, last thoughts. One, selfishly, if you're looking for a job in Columbus, Ohio, we're hiring sales reps. We'd love to bring people on. If you're someone who thinks you're a leader and wants to grow a company, we would love to have you. And second, wherever you're at in your journey, just keep going, knowing that you may not be able to see the end of that tunnel or that light at the end of the tunnel, knowing that it always does come as long as you don't quit. So if you're ever in that dark spot in business or life, just keep going. It only stays dark if you quit. The light always comes. So
yeah, that's perfect. How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, I think the best way, my Instagram, it's just Real Estate Mike 02. Shoot me a message on there and I will get back to you.
Do you need to have a conversation with Real Estate Mike? Do you need to reach out to this guy?
I tagged my team to like find, my name is Michael Smith. So like, if I were all I have all the Michael Smiths, but I'm like,
just buy michaelsmith.com.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I tag them with like checking that stuff every month. I was like, if it ever comes up at a reasonable price, we're doing it. And same with Real Estate Mike too. So yeah, if you want to have I'll let you have the conversation.
Yeah. I tried buying at Steve. Right. And at that time they wanted 1 Bitcoin. Like,
how long ago was that?
Well, it was when Bitcoin was doing really well. So pre-22 crash.
Okay. So 40-ish probably?
42, 44. I was like, look, I really want this handle, but I don't want to spend 40K on this handle.
It would have worked. I mean,
I should have, he already sold it. Otherwise, when Bitcoin was at 20, he's like, I'm going to justify this.
Yeah.
And then Steve.com, that guy is he's irrational.
7 figures.
I don't know. Like he's like, it's non-negotiable. So I think that's his way of just trying to get me to bid myself against really high.
Yeah. I don't blame him if you have something like that.
Yeah. I don't blame him either. So perfect. So Real Estate Mike 02.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Appreciate you, Steve.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Steve Trang. Jump on the Steve Trang. We real estate disruptors.